So you want to be more profitable when you're betting on sports. I mean, I'm sure all of us do. So let's look at ways that we can do that on parlay books, right? Betting on parlays is super fun, but it's also something that can be very profitable if you take specific strategies and processes that have worked for me, have worked for others in the past, and put them to use them to your advantage, and beat the sports books in the long run. Okay. And so today in this video, I'm going to be going over, probably a handful of incredible strategies that have been great for me, right? I've made over $6,000 in just under 4 months betting on sports with OddsJam, and parlays and daily fantasy sports books have been a big chunk of that, right? And so I kind of do know what I'm actually talking about here. As you can see, I've been successful. So let's look at specific strategies, tips and tricks, and just baseline things that you need to make sure you're doing to eliminate those errors, eliminate the mistakes, and create as much profitability for you in the long run. So let's get into it. So before we even start, first thing you need to do is understand what sports books you have access to, in your area. If you're in the United States, it's going to go by state, and so you have to figure out what sports books are available in your state. I'm sure Google can help you with that. And if you're outside of the States, like I'm in Canada, it's going to be a little bit different. But in general, figure out what sports books you do have access to, and then we can get started. All right, so let's first define what a parlay is. And I know this might be super basic to some of you, but let's just quickly refresh ourselves, right? So a parlay is basically a sports bet where you take multiple legs, so multiple bets within one bet, and basically you need to win all legs for you to cash out. Why would you want to do that? Well, because you get a multiplier. You get a bit of a bonus on that because of how difficult it is to cash out or to cash a slip, right, that has 4, 5, 6 legs on it, right? Obviously, it's harder to win a bet where you need, 5 different things to happen as opposed to just one. So a parlay is where you need to win all of them. Obviously, there are some technicalities there where I'll get into it in a little bit, where you can have insurance on it. And so, if you get 4 out of 5, you still do get a little bit of a payout. But in general, that's what a parlay is, right? You have a bunch of different bets in one slip, which is what we call the overall bet. And you need to win all of them to win that payout. But the payout's going to be big, okay? And so that, in general, that's what parlays are. Nowadays, there are these awesome sports books like PrizePicks, Underdog, Parlay Play, and all of them, they provide, a really cool way to find value in today's market. So in general, if you were to be, placing a slip on another sports book and you were to go, more like over or under on player props or whatever on just a general sports book like FanDuel or DraftKings, the payout that you would get from the bet, it would be based on the odds attached to each player. So if we're placing a parlay on a regular sports book like I'm on here, and we have 2 players in it, they have attached odds, right? So this Porter Jr. over 10.5 points is -133. This Baez under on hits is +167. And that's what influences the outcome, right? The odds that you get on this bet here, okay? Right? It's +372. The odds are constantly moving, and it's based on these odds within the slip itself, right? If I were to change Baez from a +169 to a -324, this total right here completely changes, right? So that's the difference between something like this versus PrizePicks, right? Because on PrizePicks, if you were to place your bet, regardless of what you take, over or under on a specific player or a specific sport, it doesn't matter. What happens is, if you were to put 2 players in here, you get a 3x payout. It doesn't matter what their odds are. Like Jimmy Butler could easily be -200 to go over this point total on a bunch of other sports books, but PrizePicks still has him at this total here. You can put him in this slip with Jokic, and you still get a 3x payout. There is the value. This is where we can find value on PrizePicks as opposed to these other sports books. PrizePicks does not vary the payout. It's the exact same thing with underdog, right? So if we're looking at the NBA Finals here, we have Jamal Murray and we have Tyler Herro. We put, regardless of what happens, it's a 3x payout, right? It doesn't matter if you go higher or lower on Murray, still a 3x. So these types of DFS or parlay books like PrizePicks and Underdog, where they don't vary the payout, that allows you to then put in place the number one strategy. The only strategy that you need to look for is finding value on other sports books, finding plays that are mispriced, and putting them into these slips because their payouts do not vary. And the best place to find value by far is OddsJam, right? OddsJam is an incredible platform and software that provides you with tons of different tools as a sports bettor, but the number one tool that I use the most is their fantasy optimizer. And that is perfect for these parlay books, right? Because it allows you to find value on other sports books and use it to your advantage on PrizePicks or Underdog or whatever parlay book that you're using. So we've got our sports books, we've got our tools and software to find value. Now let's figure out, what is the value? What am I even talking about here? So if your parlay book, PrizePicks, Underdog, whatever, has a fixed payout structure like I've been talking about, that opens the door for you to find lines, find odds on these player props on other sports books where basically you want to find ones that are favored, right? And so OddsJam makes it easy to find it. So as an example here, this Michael Porter Jr. over points, rebounds, and assists on Pinnacle, on DraftKings, Caesars, and MGM, he is favored. He's quite favored. I would say heavily favored to go over this, right? And that's why it's marked in green. So let's look at it from a baseline perspective. If he is favored to go over at minus 146 on Pinnacle, minus 140 on DraftKings, that means that in general, if you were to put this in a parlay with another play, these odds would be taken into account when they make their payout. But since Underdog and Parlay Play and PrizePicks have a fixed payout, you can put Michael Porter Jr. in your parlay, and he doesn't have these odds contributing to the payout. He actually has these odds, right? PrizePicks implied odds, meaning each leg of that parlay, what are the odds that, if it was on a regular sports book where the odds contribute to the payout, what are the odds, right? What does PrizePicks have it set at? And it is minus 118, because if you have 5 players in there and you're getting a 10x, if you were to put that in a parlay where you're getting a 10x payout with 5 legs, it ends up being minus 118. So now that we know that PrizePicks has a payout of minus 118, and it completely changes depending on the sports book that you're looking at, but they all have implied odds. Underdog is minus 120. You can look at, No House Advantage has it at minus 119. Parlay Play, I believe, is minus 113. So all of them have their own implied odds. And this is where you can find the value, because you're looking for plays that are way more favored than this. And if you put them in that slip, you're getting value, right? You're getting way better payout, way better odds on your bet than you actually should be getting. So you could pretty simply leave it there and, just begin creating your slips. You use OddsJam, you look, you find plays that are in the green or the yellow, and you build out your slips because they're favored. But let's go a little bit deeper here. Let's look at what this number here is, the OddsJam algo odds. And let's talk about what that means. So this number right here is how you calculate this percent chance to hit, okay? And basically what this number is are the No-Vig or fair odds. So No-Vig odds, VIG is basically a tax that the sportsbook puts on their lines. So as an example, if you have a game between two teams that are evenly matched, right? It's a completely 50-50 chance. You're never going to have a sportsbook that offers you even odds on both sides, because they need to take their cut, basically. Every odd that they put up on their sportsbook, they're going to add a tax onto it. So if it's 50-50, it's going to be minus 110 and minus 110, or minus 115 and minus 115. They're always going to take that cut. So in general, this means that the odds on these sports books aren't actually accurate to what the actual percent chance to hit is. The odds are a direct reflection of the probability or the percent chance to hit. If you look at, let's say a minus 200 favorite, the probability that it's going to hit is 66%. If we look at the example I said before, at even money plus 100, the probability is 50% chance to hit. So obviously odds and probability are a direct reflection of each other. But when the odds aren't accurate to the probability, right? The odds are inflated based on the sports book, or basically deflated based on the sports book adding a tax to it. You can't actually calculate what the odds of something to happen are. So you need to remove the VIG. And OddsJam makes it super easy to do that because they have a no-VIG fair odds calculator. So as an example, let's look at this Boston Red Sox total here, over or under 3.5 on DraftKings, okay? So we've got plus 120 to the over, minus 150 to the under. Those odds aren't actually accurate, and I'll show you how. Plus 120, minus 150, okay? So we're gonna put this into the calculator, plus 120 and minus 150. And the actual odds, so the no-VIG, the actual odds for something to happen, the probability, turns it into plus 132 and minus 132. So as you can see, you don't get that great of a payout as you should on the over, and the same thing for the under, right? The sports book is adding in that tax, okay? So now that we know how important it is to remove the VIG or the tax and find what the actual no-VIG fair odds are, right? This now shows us the actual percent and probability for something to happen. And so when we find this number, OddsJam makes it easy for us to see this. We can then compare it to the implied odds on that specific platform and see if we're getting value. So as an example, if you're looking at this Kyle Lowry prop here, we've got minus 148, 135, 142. If you're looking at it just from these odds and you compare it to here, well, obviously we're getting great value, right? We're getting, he's supposed to be pretty favored to go over, and we're getting him at this number. Of course, we're going to take it. But if you remove the VIG from this, then we actually see what the probability is supposed to be. And, it's still profitable. It's still a good play to add into a slip because you're still getting more value over here, right? You're basically getting a larger payout than you should be getting, right? Because minus 118 compared to minus 121, you're getting more value on this side here. But it's not quite as good as this. So that's why it's so important to figure out what the fair odds are of a specific selection. And so this is basically what the optimizer does, is it finds you plays, it shows you and it ranks it based on what the fair odds are. It compares it to the implied odds of the specific sports book, and you're on your way. It will label it in green. So it's basically in green if it's above this. So, this is minus 118.12. So it's technically green. If it's below it by, I think, 1 or 2 cents, it's going to be yellow. And then if it's way below, it's going to be red. So if I were to give you, some more tips and tricks here and a strategy, I would say try to fill out your lineups, obviously, with the green. However, OddsJam has a really cool feature where you can select them and see how plus EV it is, right? So you can see that if you were to put these 5, into a slip, even with 2 red, it's actually only minus, 2% plus EV. So it's still minus EV. You definitely wouldn't want to do this, but it's still, you can still basically build out slips with yellow in it as well. So I would always recommend using green, and then you can put a little bit of yellow in to build out that slip, because moving on to the next and final point and strategy is how many legs are we doing here? Is it a two-man, 3-man, 4-man, 5-man, 6-man? How long of a parlay do we want to do? What is the most profitable, and how can we figure that out? The number of legs within your parlay is the final and probably most important thing to take away from this video. It completely varies based on the sports book that you're placing these parlays, but At the end of the video, I'm going to throw up a bunch of screenshots that show you, what is optimal. And so make sure you stay to the end to see that. But let's go through this spreadsheet here that goes over a bunch of math. As a lot of these sports books and these odds, they rely on math, and this is where you find the value. So this is for parlay play, and I'm gonna show you why it's far more profitable to place a 6-man insured slip on parlay play as opposed to a 2-man. Okay, so let's assume that you have a 56 win percentage. This number doesn't actually matter, but let's assume it's 56. If you were to have a 56 win percentage on parlay play, you would have a 27% ROI. And the reason why is because basically you take that win percentage and then you put it out onto a bunch of different, you run this a bunch of different times, and you can see that 6 for 6, you profit this amount. 5 out of 6, you still get a 2x, so you profit this. And then you run the expected win percentage, and basically it can tell you that you would end up having a 27% ROI if you were to win 56% of the time on parlay play. And just to clarify, this is 56% on each leg, not each slip, each leg. Okay, so 27% ROI with a 6 pick, heading over to the 2 pick with 56% win percentage, minus 5.9% ROI. Okay, and so this is exactly why it is really important to think about what number of players you want to place in the parlay. Since it's a fixed payout, it really does influence it. Like, it totally changes how profitable you can be. Okay, and so now let's look at specifically what is the most profitable. So for PrizePicks, the most profitable is a 5-man flex and a 6-man flex, because it's minus 118, minus 119, around there. Those are the odds for those. Everything else is way worse. Okay, for underdog, it's a 3-man and a 5-man, and technically 4-man insured. You can get into that, but it's basically 3-man and 5-man for underdog. For parlay play, 5-man, 6-man, and that's it. So those are the most profitable ways to do those parlays. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, learned something new. Subscribe for a lot more videos on this channel. We're going to be getting into the nitty gritty over the summer before NFL and all the fun sports start again in September and October. And like the video if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon.